me because it's very similar to Tim. My relationship with Will was obviously fantastic. But Tim and Zach, even just goalkeeping wise, are very similar in their movements, in their athleticism, and just even as people, very humble, very, very kind human beings. So it's really kind of elevated me to make sure that I'm on point every single day when I'm planning my sessions. There's no down days. You can't have one, whether it's 15 minutes or it's 45 minutes in the session. It's just got to be on point and on par, and they have to be improving and gaining something from the sessions.
See, I love what you just said right there, because I think that's mistakes that I think a lot of young coaches make when they receive a goalkeeper that comes from a different environment, whether they're highly established or whether they're just new to the environment, is when things are being effective, they try to change them. And when things aren't being effective, they just try to give them these tools, but they don't give them the why, and obviously, you've had a lot of experience with seeing this on both ends and everything like that. But I just know for myself personally, I can't tell you when I was a young coach and I would go into an environment, and all of a sudden, like a youth national team keeper came to the club, and I saw something, and I was like, but that's not. I want my goalkeepers, that whole possessive thing again. My goalkeepers doing things, and then I just started realizing, I'm like, well, I've just lost this person. And obviously you don't want to lose a veteran goalkeeper. But what happens, Sharpie, when it's not going right, and you have to have these conversations and go, look, I know this is the way you've always done it, but either the game has changed or the way we play is a little bit different. How do we do that? I know obviously with Will, he came from an environment where even technical training was a little bit different.
Right. And that, look, I think, Mike, that's probably the caveat to it all. Things don't go right all the time. And again, you're going back to what you asked me about having these guys I've had to have some tough conversations over the years. I've had to have tough conversations with Tim Howard that, T, we need to slightly change the way you're doing this based on, you're getting a little bit older. Even with Will, early doors, I said, where the league you've come from, Liga MX, and you played 250 games in there, MLS is going to be quite different. It's going to be quite different. You can't just fly out and spread yourself and block. We're going to have to be calculated in why we do it, how we do it, when we do it. But I go back to this. When it's time to have those conversations, it is the why we are doing it. This is why we are doing it. I can see this is going to help you because this is the reason. Take a couple of clips from training, take a couple of clips from the game. You can see right now what's on here. The best way for me is to take the training sessions, and these are all based on what you're seeing right now, is based on our opponent, what they're going to see. Crosses, a lot of crosses against San Jose. Defend the goal, 1v1 blocks, and so on and so forth. But it's showing these guys that we are going to slightly adjust your starting position, the way you break down for a 1v1, the positioning in which you're going to close the 1v1 on the angle, to take away option A, B, and C, where it's a cutback, the shot, or the 1v1. Where, once Will get to the point where he's like, wow, I'm seeing the game a little bit differently now, and obviously he's very established in MLS now. Again, it's going back to gaining that trust. If you can show these guys why you are doing it, not just doing it to do it, which I think, is part of the problem right now. A lot of people posting a lot of stuff on social media, and you don't know the context on what they're doing and why they're doing it and who they're doing it for. And I guarantee you, and we played LAFC. I had 5 minutes with Oka before or after the game, but I guarantee you, Hugo Leach is still trying to get better. Roman Berkey, and I, good mates with Alex there at St. Louis. Roman's trying to get better every single day. It's not just I'm Roman Berkey, I'm doing what I'm doing, and he is getting better. You can see whatever they're doing over there is making him better every day. I think it's holistic, mate. If you show them the why, regardless of age or level, they will buy into it very, very quickly.
And I think, what you just brought up a really good point right there in regards to like a different league, a different way people play can affect how you play. That's something I wasn't even just considering. Cause I'm just like even thinking something as simple as like you bring in a goalkeeper who's only been playing, in let's just say a lower, like I'll take talk to the transfer portal, because this is honestly happening a lot, Sharpie.
Yep.
There are goalkeepers who are playing Division 3, Division 2, who are transferring to Division 1 schools, and it's a lot more sophisticated. The players are faster, the players are stronger, they're better on the ball, everything, and it's and then they get into that environment, and like, yeah, maybe they were great athletes and that's why they're transferring over or whatever, but it's going to take a split second for them to be able to catch up, right?
Yep. I think that's true at any level. You look at the guys that we're bringing in from overseas into the field players. It's taking the South Americans maybe 12 months to get comfortable, learn the language, get used to the food, the altitude, the flights, whatever it looks like. And then all of a sudden, bang, in year 2, they're banging in 15 goals and 15 assists, and if people are questioning them in the first 12 months, were they really worth that amount of money? Was that a good signing? X, Y, Z. And I think it's the same at college level. Every college is very different. Every coaching style is very different. Every school offers different ways to do things in their programs, whether it's living situations, whether it's the canteen for food. And these are all the stuff that we go through with the young guys when they're going through these processes. But I think time in an environment is important. And that is going to allow these guys to grow and navigate their way through difficult times, allow us as coaches to navigate their way through difficult times as well. But I think that giving these guys time, if this is someone you truly want to bring into your environment and truly want to see them succeed and uphold the culture in which you are trying to create for your program, that you have to give these guys a little bit of time to kind of integrate and feel loved in there and understand what you're actually looking for them.
Yeah, I mean, I was just thinking about that right now. Like, we've been discussing so much in regards to, and I think it happens a lot in conversations because we're so goalkeeper centric, is in regards to the goalkeeping community and the environment, and how to integrate these goalkeepers into our environment. But there's the environment, which is the team, which is the coaches and the players and the city and everything like that. Like, how can we as goalkeeper coaches help them with like integrating with the teammates, for instance? These are brand new people.
And I think too, a lot of that stuff, like early on in, let's say, and I'll take Zach's example for it's the best one.
Yeah.
Early on in preseason, I wanted them to be in the rondos. I wanted them to do possession where their target's on the end. And also it helps our style of play too, playing for the goalkeeper, playing vertical, so on and so forth, being an option to get out. But I think that the more time they spend with the guys, and look, football is changing. Goalkeeping is changing as a whole. You don't get 50 minutes with just the goalkeepers now, and then all of a sudden they're with the team. You might get 15 minutes. They go into a possession game. They come back to you for 10 minutes. They go into small-sided games. They come back. They do, some transition work, whatever it looks like. It's not just goalkeepers go with goalkeepers and then they jump in. Now, you'll have days like that, 100%, but it's obviously what the gaffer is asking for on that day. But I think it is integrating them in the environment, being around, if you're playing rondos, 5v2s, if you're in possession drills, you put them in the 7v6s, 5v4s, 5v6s, 11v10s, whatever it looks like, so they can start integrating themselves in. And I did that early doors with Zach because not only did I feel it was important, but I also felt what he is going to be able to bring the group as a whole was also important as well. We have a young team. He is a very experienced player. Will was the same human being. He wanted to be in and around the group, not only on the pitch, but you start talking about video sessions, unit meetings, defenders, back fours with the goalkeepers in them, sixes, defenders with the goalkeepers in them, whole teams. And you're nudging the goalkeepers to say, hey, speak up. If there's something in there that you feel like you need to say it. There's no wrong answer. So I think it is us controlling it a little bit, but also finding the moments to plant the seed and integrate them into those, sessions that can really be affecting the other guys around them too as a team.
Man, I was thinking more of, from a behavior standpoint, but like you just brought up some really good tangible situations, like suggestions that were so simple. It never even dawned on me, just something as simple as like, hey, brand new goalkeeper, incorporate them into rondos with the outfield players immediately. Wow. Because now I'm just thinking about if that happens, then those players are already going to want to fight for that goalkeeper, and they're going to trust that goalkeeper rather than conceptually told they're supposed to trust that goalkeeper or fight for that goalkeeper. It's such a great point.
It is a huge thing. And I think too that you go all the way back to the beginning of the conversation. This is also integrating the young kids into the first team environment. This is also integrating the young academy players, the 12s, the 13s, the 14s into the 17s group, incorporating the 15s and 17s into the R2 or the MLS Next Pro group. Everyone's different. Everyone works in different ways. Everyone has different philosophies and methodologies. But something for me that I think has worked well at our football club is when the integration period starts to happen is the time they spend. I will pick a day, and it's intentional, where Zach Campagnola, great example. I bring him up on a day we're doing small-sided games and it's competition day. And it might be a day where he gets lambasted by the players, but he is going to feel integrated like that. He is going to understand what it feels like to be in a first-team environment where winning has to happen, making saves, protecting the goal, organizing defenders. You're going to get some of the backlash of it. It's just how it's going to happen. But I've thrown him into the fire. Does he sink? Does he swim? It can't go any other way from there but up. So it is intentional. You're picking a day where you're asking him to do a lot as a young goalkeeper and throwing him to the wolves, so to speak. But all of a sudden he's like, whoa, this is a whole different environment for me. Now, hopefully he's grabbing that and taking it back to the 17s group, the will to win, the desire to win, everything. And then obviously put our style of play, our methodologies into the training as a whole.
So we're recording now. And all right, here we go. Well, to a very special Inside the 18. I'm Michael Magid, live from Hollywood, California. With me are two incredible people, because this is a sneak preview of their brand new podcast called Gloves Off, with the one and only 99 World Cup winner Saskia Weber and world-renowned GK analyst Bill Reno. I am going to be taking off in a second right here, guys, but every week you're going to be able to check in with Bill and Saskia on this brand new podcast. So I'm going to let them take it away, and you're on, Bill.
Yeah, thank you, Michael. Yeah, no, it's good. I'm looking forward to this. I think this is going to be great. Saskia, obviously you've been heavily involved with the league, and I know from my perspective of what I've seen content-wise when it comes to goalkeeping, it seems like it's really boiled down in a lot of ways of just kind of like really generic comments. From your perspective, do you get a sense that it's getting better at all? Do you feel like it's still kind of in this plateau state of just general comments? I mean, as someone who's in the league, how do you feel like goalkeeping is presented?
Well, I mean, I think you have myself, you have Jill Lloyden, you have several other analysts that have goalkeeper backgrounds. And so when those analysts get to, break down the goalkeeping, it's on point. I love listening to some of the other analysts. I think Jordan is doing a great job. She's listening to any feedback that Jill gives her and that I give her, along with Lori. And when I hear them break down a goalkeeping situation, I'm like, all right, good job. So I think more attention is getting paid to it and to the position.
Yeah. When you talk about more attention, I mean, break that down a little bit. What is the difference between someone who's adding a little bit more detail? What are they seeing? What are they picking up versus someone who's making those generic, the goalkeeper needs to do better?
Yeah, the goalkeeper needs to do better here. I think we're seeing more analyzing. I think we're seeing breakdown of positioning, breakdown of handling the ball, organization, and seeing it more from a goalkeeper's perspective and explaining it from that perspective instead of just saying, oh, the goalkeeper should have done better here, or giving the wrong information. There's nothing that's my favorite. There's nothing she could have done about that. Look, I've said that too, but when it was a free kick by Emsley in the upper 90 that Casey Murphy couldn't get to, and I'm like, nobody's getting to that, So, but there's a time and a place for that. And I think that we're seeing now that you can't just get away with those blanket statements. Just like for myself as an analyst, I can't get away with just saying, oh, great shot. Emsley made a great shot. No, I have to break down why, what side of the foot she hit it with, how that was created. And so analysts are now tuning into the fact they have to give that information and educate themselves on goalkeeping.
Yeah, I think that why question is really key, because if you say great shot, anyone's going to think, well, what
I
about
know
it?
that.
Yeah. It's obvious, but like, what about it was great if I don't understand? Trying to get a little bit more understanding of it. I think something I always really appreciate is when you talk about the analysis aspect, when someone breaks down the goalkeeper's either emotional response of what's going on in their head, or from like the macro of like what the team's trying to do, instead of just looking at a very specific, well, in this like 2-second span, this happens. Like, well, what happened on the play before, or was the keeper, kind of jolted a little bit because of previous play, or are they trying to do something that's a little bit difficult team wise? That sort of stuff, like that kind of fulfills the why question for me of like, well, what's happening? That's a great save because, or that's a poor attempt because, that stuff helps out a lot.
Have you ever noticed though, like, I think sometimes I sit there and I'll listen, and it'll be like, oh, great save. And like, and this, like the first place your mind goes to is like, oh my God, yeah, it was a great save, but the reason you had to make that save, you made this entire situation incredibly difficult for yourself. And I think that analysts that aren't goalkeepers haven't gotten to that yet. They haven't gotten to the understanding that that it was a debacle leading up to it, but the small details of why they don't see the positioning that was off, or which is usually the case. And now you're tipping the ball instead of handling it and coming out with the ball in your hands. They just see, oh, it's a great tip. And so once they start to kind of evolve and educate themselves in that position, they'll understand those little points.
Yeah. I always appreciate whenever a youth coach rotates all their players in goal. And I think a lot of places are getting better, but just understanding how difficult it is to be in goal. And maybe you're sitting for 15, 20, 30 minutes at a time. Nothing's happening, maybe a few back passes.
Mm-hmm.
And then instantly you've got to save the game. I think that's a really tough thing for people to understand it unless they've even just attempted. I'm not even said be great at it. If you've just sat in on a Sunday league or pick up with friends, like if you don't understand that kind of switch feeling, like, I think it's difficult to weigh anything on it. So that sort of stuff. If you've never sat in the goal, and it's the same for me. Like I can only say so much about the forwards, right? That's a lot of my comfort zone.
Yes, so. and like I said, they see things that I don't see either.
Yeah.
It's a give and take. Like I'm educating myself, like you have to educate yourself, and any goalkeeper coach has to educate themselves out there on what the forward's perspective is, or the midfield, or the defense's perspective, because it's not it's not the same, and the more you can educate yourself, one, as an analyst, obviously the better analyst you're going to be, but two, just as a coach or as a spectator, the better you're going to be at it.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, today I did want to talk about the some fringe, if not in national team camps, goalkeepers. So there's 3 specifically we're going to talk about here. And we're going to look at this from the lens of starting for the national team as opposed to just being a starter in the league, which I think we all understand there's a bit of a tier difference there. So
I'll say this before we start.
Yeah.
If you ask me, because this is gloves off for a reason, right? I'm not going to be sugarcoat things. Right now, if I were the coach of the national team, I wouldn't say there's a firm number one, but I have felt that way. I would say coming in as Emma Hayes, I would say I'm not announcing a number one right now. And I know the whole world might drop and say, no, Alyssa Nair is the number one and stuff. From what I've seen so far in NWSL, like I don't think that people are playing their best at all. And some people are starting to play better, and we'll talk about it. But I wouldn't say you've got that spot, you're solidified, you're done. And yes, she's done great, but we can get into that. Yes, she's done great. And, but like I said, if you go from a goalkeeper's perspective, and if you were to ask Alyssa Nair about the PKs, she'll come to you and say, we should have never been in there because of my mistake before that. right? And yes, you stood up, you saved the PKs, and you made, which were horrible PKs, because we could get into that. And then you made your PK, but you should have never been there in the first place because of the bobbled ball and coming out and not clearing it in extra time. So I'm just saying that's my perspective on the national team, so we can go into the bubble players.
Yeah. Well, I break that down a little more, because so like imagine, and you might have something to pull back from that I may be a little unaware of, but imagine you're one of those goalkeepers, and let's say Emma Hayes does make an announcement of like, hey, like there's no clear number one, and you're in the player pool, you've been playing, you feel like you've been doing what you can. What do you feel like would be the proper response for any of the goalkeepers to hear, or for Nate, or for anyone that's on the fringe of hearing, hey, there's no clear number one? How do you think like a player should handle that?
They should put their head down and get to work and really kind of look, you have 2.5 months until the Olympics. Obviously the team will be picked, but if she were to come in and say no clear number one, you've got to sit down, look at where your deficiencies are, what you're consistently doing wrong, not the random mistake that you made here or there, but if this is like a repetitive decision-making issue, and try to work on that before getting to that point. Listen, when you say there's not a clear number one, there's a lot of factors that go involved in that. It's also experience. Are you going to go into the Olympics with somebody that has no caps in goal? Probably not. So you want your team to feel confident, comfortable. Experience plays a big role in major tournaments. So that's part of this as well. But I would, tighten it up. Bottom line.
Yeah. How do you feel like field players respond to, I don't know if instability is the right word, but lack of consistency with a clear number one? Because I feel like I hear both sides of, well, field players want to have consistency, they want to have that same goalkeeper, but then I feel like I hear, well, they want the best to be playing, and they understand there's competition for their position. So like, should there not be also per goalkeeper? So
I think at this level they have to look at it the same as their own position. There's somebody biting at the bit at their heels, and you want there to be competition in your goalkeeper pool. You want to feel that no matter what goalkeeper comes in, there isn't a drop in level. And so if your team has confidence in your 1, in your 1.5, then, and your 2, equal confidence, then just like if a Smith didn't start a game, but she came in, you wouldn't think that there's going to be a drop in level. They're game changers, right? So if another goalkeeper starts, she should be considered a game changer as well. There isn't a drop in level.
Yeah. No, I'm with you on that. And I feel like going into the Olympics, I mean, like you said, 2.5 months, not ideal to not have a clear number one, really in any position, but certainly the goalkeeper, like that's one you really want to have nailed down. But I do feel like we've kind of hit, I don't know if malaise is the right word, but we've hit this point where goalkeepers will do one thing really well, and the next moment,
absolutely. And we're seeing it, seeing it across the board. We're seeing it where, I have a feeling I know who we're going to talk about, players we're going to talk about, but we're seeing it like, okay, you had like 5 great saves, right? But you're consistently making this mistake over and over again, or this and like I say, you have to take out the debacles, although they happen, but you have to look at the bigger picture in that and stuff. And so I think that I'm on the kind of border of this. Like, does Emma Hayes come in and use the Olympics to say, hey, no, I'm revamping this team. Like I'm gonna, like, personally, even on the field, like I think Corey Buffoon should be pulled into the national team right now. She's playing out of her mind. I called this when I coached against her at UCLA, that she is a pure professional that is just such a talent. She is rookie of the month this month, but she'll continue to be. And she absolutely deserves a look. So do you step back and say, all right, guys, I'm going to use this tournament to start focusing and training the next generation and give them these big tournament experiences before the next World Cup? Do you do that? Or do you say, okay, it's more important for us to just go with, I don't think she's going to do that. Just go with the norm, what we've been doing just to get through the Olympics, and then we'll start rebuilding. Absolutely not. I think you use the Olympics to start rebuilding. So I think some people are going to be surprised on who's on this Olympic team.
No, I hope so, because when we get into the pattern of, and I think we've seen the past where World Cup Olympics, it's really easy to just roll over the roster, right? Just like, oh, we'll take the World Cup roster, we'll just take it here. But then, and I think we've seen it on a number of levels where, and just in life where someone doesn't get a fair chance. Well, okay, well, what are they going to do now? Like you start to see either checking out or disconnecting or not playing at an elite level, knowing that you don't get those fair shots.
And the thing I don't agree with it is there's a lot of time between the Olympics and the World Cup. Okay. But there's no time between the World Cup and the Olympics. But you need to have a core group of players that when they're playing pro and they are playing well, that is the core group. Those are the players, and they're clicking in camp. Those are the players you take. And that might mean leaving home. I'll just use Alex Morgan as an example, although she was playing really well. You might leave home an Alex Morgan because at that time, a month out of the Olympics, she's not playing well. But so-and-so is. And so, sorry, this is because gone are the days that we weren't playing in between. The only thing we had was the U.S. team. And the only thing we had was tournaments and playing at home with your friends in the yard. So gone are those days. We have, professional soccer, everybody's playing. So it's kind of different in my opinion.
Yeah, I'm going through Scurry's biography very slowly. I'm not the biggest reader, but she talks about the transition from 1999 to 2000 with the Olympics and how, of course, 99 she's top of the world, and she even admits herself that she essentially just stopped training and put on weight, got out of shape, wasn't performing at her best, and what happens? She loses the starting spot, and
But you're still on the team.
Yes.
And that's my point. If that was now, number one, she wouldn't have gotten out of shape because she would have gone out of the World Cup and gone into pro, and so she would have been training and playing. But if she had done that, she shouldn't be on the team now.
Yep. Yeah, that's fair. That's fair. Well, speaking of starting, and
all right, let's check it out.
Yeah. So I think this made the rounds a bit here, but we have this play from Nair this weekend here, and we're early 10 minutes in, and I think when you think of Nair's game, if we're all being honest, she's not normally known for playing out of the back, and we see this sort of stuff. Not super often from her because I think she plays within her skill set and plays, knows what she can do. But I think when she's forced to make some decisions, and I want to say it was the Spain quarterfinal of 2 World Cups ago now, where a little bit of a similar situation where she's playing a little bit more advantageously than she should be. And so they end up winning the game 2-1 here. Result-wise doesn't change anything. But when you put your coaching hat on with this, Saskia, what do you think when you see this 10 minutes into this game here?
Well, number one, I think that knowing that Nair struggles in this area and stuff, then why set her up so deep? Okay. And look at the offense. They are baiting this. So you have to go into this knowing that Bay Area knows that this is a possibility that Nair might struggle here. And if we press her, they are waiting. They are allowing the outlet passes to the 2 wing backs. They're to the 2 center backs. They're allowing the pass. And then they're like, go ahead, pass it back to Nair. And we're going to rush her. And what happens? You get a goal. Now, this probably won't happen at a time, but might happen 5 out of 10 times that she might end up sending this out of bounds. You might get the throw in, right? So look at them. They're baiting it. She has no outlet. And then you're basically saying, give it short. Then we're going to press the short. So they give it back to you, and we're going to press you really fast. And they get a goal out of it. And so these are the kind of things I'm saying that you have to sit back and look at, on an international stage. Is France going to know this? Is Spain going to know this? Is Holland going to know this? Absolutely, they're going to know it, right? So either as a head coach, you have to take this out of your repertoire. You have to know that the other teams are going to bait this, or she's got to do something totally different with this ball.
Yeah, I think long are the days that, the main advantage was to outwork a team. This, you can tell it's by design. You're absolutely right with the setup of they have set up in a way that they discourage the ball to those fullbacks wide. and they've kind of
and there's no lines to bypass here.
Yeah.
So if you see the way they're set up, like she can't bypass that back line and go into the midfield. They have the midfield clogged up. She could, and in my opinion, it's 10 minutes into the game. So maybe not aware that this was what they were going to do, although you should be. She tested it out and she was on the worst end of it. I guarantee you this didn't happen again in the game, because she's going to look up and see, okay, they're baiting me. And when you get into those situations and realize that this isn't working now, okay, let's reset this, push everybody up, let's send a long ball and, kind of reformulate how we're going to get out of the back moving forward.
Yeah. Well, and everyone always talks about the biggest difference in goalkeeping now versus 20 years ago is playing out of the back. There's obviously other things, but I think for me, it's less about playing out of the back when it comes to goalkeepers knowing, and it's more about knowing what you can and can't do.
Yeah.
If you can't seam certain balls, you can't hit with a certain foot, you have to know that and not put yourself into a spot here. So if we go back to the start here in a second, I'll loop back here. But if she rolls out, that's fine. But as this ball comes back into her, it seems like she almost kind of gets surprised of why.
Yeah, and the other option that she actually has here is to come across the body and go long ball out, right? Because you're not going to go short. So if she has to recognize she can't go back the same direction. So if this back pass has to go the other direction, away from the mouth of the goal, so a touch wide, and then just clear it, right? Give yourself that time to clear it. But going back the way it came is absolutely not the play. And she knows it. I'm saying, I'm like, I'm hope listeners, she knows she made this mistake, but are you going to adjust this mistakes? And I think that between now, these are consistent deficiencies. So you asked me what keepers, if there's no clear cut number one, you have to look at yourself and say, the world knows I'm not strong dealing with this situation.
Yeah, no, you're absolutely right. And I think this comes back to the idea of like, what is being asked of the number one goalkeeper for the U.S. and what they need to do. So what's happening in Chicago, admittedly, is different than with the U.S. national team.
Absolutely.
But
absolutely,
you're always going to have to play around certain players with their strengths and weaknesses. And I feel like Nair isn't the worst in the league with distribution, but she's one of those that's not going to be the most comfortable pinging the ball around. So with the national team or with Chicago, like you have to work around that. And that's it. I'll be honest, like this is a mistake. It feels like something you see in your early 20s, but at this point, like it happens. I get it, but it's also kind of
right. Well, but it's a good point that you make. This is the mistake you shouldn't see out of the U.S. number one, and the decision making has to be better. And like I said, I'm sure she'll be the first person to tell you that, but that touch has to come across her body, go wide, and then clear it and live the fight another day or bypass lines. And she has to be quick enough and fast enough to make that decision. And so I do think that you can look at it and say, oh, okay, it was a mistake. It doesn't happen. But technically it is a deficiency and it needs to be corrected, or you're going to see other goalkeepers starting.
Yeah, well, and the reality is Bay doesn't have the best press in the world, and it's not bad, obviously, but like,
imagine coming up against Kansas City.
Yeah, like there's going to be bigger problems on the road here. All right, so we're going to switch to another goalkeeper who, again, has been called into camps here, and we're going to look at France's game here, and again, we're kind of looking at these mistakes in one-off, and in some sense, I understand it's a little unfair to just kind of clip, oh, hey, here's 5 seconds of a play that's gone wrong. But I think, aside from being a good chance to learn, it's also just trying to understand, like, hey, what's being asked of us in the game here, both from the club side, but also the national team side. So, we talked about mistakes earlier. I feel like this one, like, I feel like there's so many. I mean, this is just
this is a comedy of errors.
Yeah, it's a lot of things that go wrong in this play, and I feel like it's one of those things, and this is something I always try to like focus with the young goalkeepers because it's something that's easy to fall into at any level, but it's not making one mistake, 2, 3, 4 mistakes here, and some of this is a little out of France's hand when her teammate kicks the ball into her, but the reality is she kind of sets herself up for this play in the first place. So, with these kind of lollipop crosses in that feel easy, I feel like we start seeing mistakes here a lot of the times where, oh, this is an easy play here. Like, that you can check out. It's very easy to have a fumble on the play.
These are one of those plays that I'm like, okay, like, this is a drop ball. This is a mistake. I always say, don't follow up one mistake by the other. I think if we broke it down, the first mistake is obviously bobbling the ball. And then you get into the debacle with, who's her outside back kicking the ball.
Well, I go a step before that and say, like, for me, it's kind of lazy on the catching. Like, she's catching like to her side, like awkwardly.
Yeah, she's not getting her body's not behind the ball. She's catching forward to a ball that's coming across her body. So she needs to square up to the ball that's coming into her. Like, and I agree with you. Like, was this laziness in a sense? It's like, okay, it was kind of casual. Now, if anybody remembers this game the other day, it was a torrential downpour. There was a 4-hour break, and so the field is slippery. So saying that, you have to take extra care of the ball. So you have to take extra care that your body gets behind it, extra care that you're squared up. This should be just into the body in a front smother and go down on the ball just to double check it. But yes, she comes across her body and allows it. Now, I don't understand the kick after that. And that this confuses me a little bit. And maybe it's because it was just the quickest way she could get to the ball. But I was like, and I kind of have to keep watching this back. I was like, why did you try to kick it? Why didn't you just pick it up? Like, why didn't you just go down on it? And then honestly, although it was finished, still not the hardest finish.
Yeah.
So mentally, where were you at? Look, she tucked it into the far corner. Technically, you had position. You did a flat dive. I think on a different day, French gets that.
Yeah.
Gets that shot.
Yeah, and I think if you just isolate that shot, like, yeah, I think you're absolutely right. But it's a number of things here that you can see there's no fans left because they've all left because of the rain delay.
Whoa.
The field's not great. Your teammate kicks it into you. You're kind of panicking a bit, just
trying to see there. I think off the rebound from there, I think she can go right down.
Yes. Yeah.
And we're talking about split seconds, but that's goalkeeping. I think right when she can go right down, hands to the ball, and that ends it. But because she comes all the way back up and tries to kick it, it gives, who is that? It's not Ordonez, but it gives Houston the chance to block that. So I think it should have been right, like not even getting up to a full stand, just go right down onto the ball.
Yeah. No, I'm with you. And I think this is one of those things, like in an isolated thing, it's easy to kind of nitpick this. Although this one is, I feel bad laughing at it because there's so many mistakes on it. And I've been there in plays where like things continually go wrong. I understand that feeling, but at the same time, like there's so many outs with this. And I think, again, like this isn't like a college keeper. Like
I think you brought up a perfect point though. Bill, I think because it's what you asked me in the beginning about like field player analysts talking about goalkeeping. She bobbled the ball. It's not seeing the fact, like we've been saying that a lot of goalkeepers are creating their own problems, right? So if we rewind this, you created your own problem by not squaring up to the ball, knowing the situation, knowing the surface, and getting that ball into your body. You caught it across your body, and that was lazy, and you created this problem. So let's say she made the save off the shot, and then you have an analyst say, oh my God, but she recovered and made a great save. And I'd be like, you created all of this. So I would never, as a coach, give you credit for making a great save. I would say, why did you create this absolute debacle?
Yeah. Yeah. No, I think you're absolutely right. And that actually gives me a perfect transition. So I appreciate that. But we're gonna look at Campbell here, and this is all of her saves from the exact same game. So
all
the game,
12.
Game's in a 1-1 tie, and I'm just gonna let this roll here because there's a variety of saves, and some of them are more difficult than others. But I think that point of creating your own problems does show up here a bit, although she doesn't get punished on anything in this game. But you'll see where stuff will get bobbled kind of awkwardly, and things are spilling out. And I feel like also in this type of environment and this type of game here, the same runs keep happening where the same players are over and over open over and over. And they're running that 3-5-2. So like defensively, I'm going to guess some of those players are struggling with that just watching it.
Well, I mean, defensively, they were getting destroyed in this game. And I think, and gloves off, guys, I think that had the rain delay not happened, this game would have been 5-0. And nothing against Campbell with all her saves, but they couldn't get out of their own half, much less their 18 for like the first 45. And then the rain delay happened, and it changed the game.
Yeah. No, this is probably one that Kansas City looks back where they're frustrated that they didn't come away with 3 points. But I feel like we see the same thing where it's people on the backside are wide open. And I understand in the play, especially that one there, like you don't have eyes in the back of your head and you can't just immediately text someone, hey, like watch out for this. Like it's tough in the moment. But when you've got throw-ins, you've got goal kicks, you've got these moments in between plays, and the same players are losing their marks. Like that, for me, when we talk about national team starter, like that's kind of the difference for me when you're a bit more of a game manager and you're able to work with the pieces you have and you're able to help someone who's struggling a bit.
You don't need at this level, you don't need to look. If you know that person keeps getting the ball on the far post, then you automatically, not even taking your eye off the service or the cross, or saying, hey, Jen, make sure, mark up weak side, mark up back post. You don't even have to look. Just automatically make the call because you already know your teammate's not doing it and struggling. And just it's that automatic reminder. Like you don't have to turn and look,
Yeah. It's coming. Yeah. And they're not robots, right? You can't control them, but I think having that connection there and working with players who maybe they've just woken up on the wrong side of the bed, whatever the reason is, like they're struggling. You have to work with them, like that's your teammate for the game. So for this game, for me, like it was a bit polarizing because XG wise, I don't know where she was at. I know she was in the positive as far as like making saves and doing a good job, but I think there were certain things when I'm using the lens of like number one national team starter of like, okay, how do you work with this sort of stuff? Like nice breakaway save here. We work with her teammates, help her out a bit on that. But communication wise, handling stuff, are we making more problems than we need to? Or are we just kind of setting up for, hey, I'm ready to make a big dive? That's a fantastic save there.
But did it need to happen because none of your defenders are you taught? And that's the question. Like, why is she getting that open shot from the top of the D with two defenders standing to her left and her right, but nobody pressing her? Is that lack of communication on your end as a goalkeeper? Now, it's quite possible because, I called this game for Bally Sport local. No, not this game. No, I watched this game. Sorry. I didn't call this game. But you can't necessarily hear, right? So as an analyst, I can't hear if she's like, step, if she's talking to her defense and stuff. So it's possible she was, but why? Where's the defense here? And what is she saying? To me, I agree with you. Are you just post up saying, okay, shoot, when the direction should be, step to the ball, like whoever's closest, whoever you're pinpointing and making that communication.
Yeah. Yeah.
And she could call me right now and be like, I was screaming at her and everything. And so there's obviously a disconnect, and that's fine. And I will tell you, I think Campbell's coming back into her form that she ended last year with. She is a shot stopper, a pure shot stopper. She loves it and she does it well. The question is, when you see a goalkeeper getting so much action, and it goes back to what you said. So you kind of get in that rhythm, right? You're in the rhythm. And it's like playing small sided, and you're just like in that zone, and you're making saves because you're constantly involved, and 12 saves, and it's here and it's here and it's there. But it's when things slow down that, and you said you're not doing anything for 30 minutes. Are you going to come up with that save in the 90th minute? And when you play for the U.S. national team, because that's what we're talking about, that's more often than not, right? So you're not getting, but well, you used to not be getting bombarded, so can you maintain your composure and that elite play and pull it out when it needs to happen? Yeah.
No, and again, that's different from club to national team. I understand that. Just for a point of reference, Campbell has 40 saves in the season, and second place is Peru at 26. So she's almost doubling second place.
And look, you have to look at it like it is a good thing because she's playing. She's getting played in. And let's say hypothetically Nair, because we're talking about national team. Let's say hypothetically Nair, like Chicago's just blind, defense is blinding everybody. Nair's making like maybe 2 saves a game and stuff like that. When you get to camp, is she involved? Is she played in? Is she everything? Look, you want your defense to do well, but at the same time, if you want to show as a goalkeeper, you would need some balls to get through.
Yeah. There's definitely a no ground there, and I think, I mean, she won goalkeeper of the year last year, and I think that she's. Yeah, I don't know if she's a clear number 1 for me, but I think if I'm going to say, hey, this person's playing the best in the league, like I'm probably picking her. It's either her or Sheridan at this point for me, but I don't think anyone's just broke at this point.
No, I don't. And I don't know if you have another clip, but I think Murphy's struggling.
Yeah. So,
and you can and look, she's a friend of mine, but I think Murphy's struggling. I think that you can say, well, look at North Carolina, and she has a couple shutouts and this and that and the other. But I think for me, from a perspective against watching the Angel City game and her being grossly out of position on Claire Emsley's chip, but watching mistakes that are repetitive. And that's what I'm talking about, where you're saying, you were sitting in the number 2 spot, but you keep making the same mistakes playing pro. I look at positionally, if you keep getting caught out of position on things, that to me is a bigger problem than what France did, or what France did and stuff like that is something more consistent to me.
Yeah, the France play is one of those you're like, I don't know if I've ever seen a play like that. I've seen parts of the play before, but yeah, like if it's one off with the wet field, like you can kind of pass it a bit, but when it's like repetitive stuff, that's where you start to have cause for concern, because it's going to happen again. So right,
and there's some other things in her game that I think I'm watching teams catch on to her distance off the line on free starts, on free kicks from outside. And it's so high that you're getting players now that are shooting, and you're going to run up against some players that are going to hit that ball. And she doesn't have the speed, although she has the height and stuff. In my opinion, if you get somebody that can really, like, you get an Henri that knocks a ball, that can hit a ball like 100 miles an hour, you're not going to get back. And so those are kind of positionally things that are a little suspect to me with Casey's game right now. So that's why I'm like, that pool is kind of open to me.
Yeah. And I guess kind of like closing topic here for me, when we fast forward to the Olympics, I mean, how optimistic are you that whoever gets that nod, which I think, I'd be surprised if it's not Nair at this point.
It'll probably be Nair.
But whoever it ends up being, are you optimistic that they'll have a good tournament, or do you feel like it'll be like the Gold Cup, where it was like, well, high moments, but then also like we're kind of shooting ourselves in the foot at times?
I think at that point you're halfway through the NWSL season. Some of the kinks have been worked out. I think it will be Nair, just because, and the reason I say this is because nobody has separated themselves. Like, nobody has become that full package for the US that says, you know what, I'm doing my distribution, my communication, my organization, like my shot stopping, my crosses. I have everything hitting on all cylinders right now, and there is nothing in my game. So I am clear cut, like becoming the number 1. You don't have that right now. Everybody's got a hitch in their step. So I think that, yes, you go with Nair, especially if Hayes starts bringing in the younger players and the new players, because now you do need that stability and that leader and that experience, which goes back to what I was talking about in the beginning. You need that experience in the back to calm everything down. And we all know what a great leader often on the field she is. And she does calm the team down. And I think you're going to need that if you're going to make some major adjustments to the team coming into the Olympics. But I think with that being said, I don't know. I think it could be a solid tournament with a few hiccups. How about that?
Yeah. Well, and it just kind of depends what the hiccups are. Like if I forget who's in our group, but if we're playing, a game that they're going to win and they win 4-1, okay, like if we have a hiccup there, that's one thing. But if it comes into the knockout stage, like that's where you kind of start to kind of roll the dice a bit. So yeah, I think at this point, like just after kind of like this up and down pattern for so long, like, I'd be pleasantly surprised if we have a strong tournament performance from our goalkeeper, whoever it is. But at this point, like, if we can just get through without, causing penalties or missing balls or just playing plays, like I'd be happy at that point.
I agree. And I think all the goalkeepers in the NWSL had a slow, shaky start. I'm across the board, and even Caitlin Sheridan. Okay, like I think we had some flub balls, some bad kicks, some in the beginning, first 2 weeks, really bad distribution. And I think a lot of the goalkeepers are starting to settle in, and we're starting to see their true colors and the way we know they play. Even like Didi Haricic, not starting the first few games and then now getting into her rhythm. I think she's probably settled in as the number one. But I think with that being said, the next month and a half will be interesting to see kind of who sets themselves apart and aside and makes that decision a little harder for Emma Hayes, honestly.
Well, and it's also like long-term investment to my math is off. The 27 World Cup. I don't do math there. I mean, you may not get the nod here, but Campbell being keeper of the year, like, does give her a leg up post-Olympic run, to be fair. So there's that as well. So
yeah.
All right. Well, that will wrap up our first episode of Gloves Off. Saskia, I really appreciate it. It's good. And I'm looking forward to kind of adding on to this and just building off of this. But
send all the hate mail my way. It's fine.
We'll take it. Hey, if we're going to be critical, then like if we open the door back for ourselves.
Hey, yes, you can be critical on me and tell me I don't know what I'm talking about. It's fine.
Yeah, we'll take it. Yeah.
All right, you guys. I'll see you later. See you next week.
Cool. I don't know how to end this.
Mike should be somewhere.
Yeah, he's hovering around. I see him.
I'm right here. Do you guys hear me right now?
Yeah, I hear you. Yeah.
Cool.
How was it?
Awesome. That was great.
That
was great. No, I'll add the outro out after that.